Thank you, Val. That's beautiful. Just beautiful. Woo! Yes, indeedy. The same power that rose Jesus from the grave, the same power that commanded the dead to awake, it lives in us. It lives in us. I'm sure you've heard many times this often repeated quotation from the Bible. All things are possible to him who believeth. And Jesus said these words as he healed the young boy who was afflicted with epilepsy. Now that's a lot of power. Yeah? That's a lot of strength. And it lies deep within for us to discover, for us to open into expression. And today is Father's Day. And today we honor all fathers, every one of them. And if I understand my biology correctly, each and every one of us has a father. And many of us still have our fathers living with us, which is really a wonderful, wonderful blessing. Many of us have fathers who have gone on to the next mansion of life. Many of us have fathers that we may not have known very well because they may not have been with our families. They may have been called away or other things had separated us. And many of our fathers may have been a difficult relationship for us. Fathers that weren't really there for our families. But we all got here because we have a father. And so today we honor all fathers. And we honor the aspect of fathers of strength, inner strength of a father. I believe that Uriah Mountain Dreamer, the inspirational author and storyteller, refers to this inner strength in her beautiful poem, The Invitation. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you've been touched, the center of sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, yours and mine, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. It doesn't interest me where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after a night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know and how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand with me in the center of the fire and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me if the story you're telling me, the story that you're telling me is really true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. If you can be faithless and thereby trustworthy. It doesn't interest me what or where or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. Strength, inner strength, the strength that arises from within, the strength of a father. Let's start with a look at Unity's view of strength. Strength being one of our 12 powers, one of the 12 inherent spiritual faculties and abilities of our divine nature. The components, if you will, of God's image and likeness within us, contained again in each and every one of us. Drawing on Fillmore's writings, Paul Hasselbeck describes strength as the faculty of steadfastness, dependability, stability, and the capacity for endurance. More than just a physical endowment, it is also a degree of spiritual awareness. The power of strength is not force or manipulation or defensiveness. It is spiritual courage and confidence. Non-resistance is the highest expression of strength. It does not mean non-action, but is an effective, calm, single-minded, divine mind-centered attitude. Now, the disciple Andrew in our unity teachings is the disciple who stands for the power of strength. And Andrew was the first disciple. Contrary to popular belief, you can check it out in the Gospel of John if you like. Although Peter does tend to get all the credit because of that, build my church on the rock thing. But in Charles Fillmore's book, The 12 Powers, he says this: among the apostles of Jesus, the strong man is designated as Andrew, the brother of Peter. And the Greek meaning of Andrew is strong man. Okay, so now it's time for a little pop quiz. On the slide up here, you'll see two sets of values or characteristics, set A and set B. So tell me, if you will, which one of these two sets of characteristics better characterizes the value of Jesus himself and of his disciples? Was Jesus set A or set B? Now, you don't need to raise your hands or fill out a card, but if you're like the thousands of other people who have been presented with the same list and asked that same question, around 90% of the time, people choose set B as the best representation of Jesus and his values. Now, I found that pop quiz in this book that I read during seminary titled, Why Men Hate Going to Church, which is a very interesting read. And maybe we should put this book on the reading list for our men's group. Gabe, what do you think? And actually, it might even be more fun to put this book on the reading list for the women's groups. That would be really interesting, yes. But the very interesting part of this pop quiz and these two set of values is they were originally drawn from this book, John Gray's Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Yes, yes indeed. And the set of values that are labeled as B are actually the basic set of values of women. And the set of values A, or basic set of values of men. Interesting indeed it was when I took this quiz myself that I chose the set B. Now, Jesus was a man, and most probably by virtue of his divinely infused human personality, was in reality very well balanced blend of all of these characteristics. Yet I myself, as do most others, when forced to choose between A and B, I chose set B. And in unity, we know that our divine nature has no gender, so that what we're looking at here is the human expression of our divine essence. So why did I see our way shower and master teacher as having primarily feminine values? Why didn't I recognize immediately his masculine values? Well, David Murrow in that book suggests that's because we tend to focus on those feminine values as being more Christ-like, more spiritual. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, except we may be missing and not recognizing Jesus' divine inner strength and competence and self-sufficiency, and thus not recognizing and calling forth our own inner divine strength and developing it and celebrating it into a greater expression in our lives. And David says there could also be an argument made that we are unknowingly scaring away men from developing a deeper spirituality by unconsciously suggesting that their natural male characteristics are not as Christ-like as their female characteristics. Things that make you go, So might we say that women are more natural mothers than men? Well, yes, they naturally have more mothering characteristics, more set B characteristics, where, of course, fathers, we learn to develop them. And there's great wisdom in the saying, the hand that rocks the cradle fraternizes with destiny. And are men more natural fathers than women? Well, yes, kind of for the same reason. Men tend to naturally carry the set A values. Does that mean that fathers are better than mothers? Well, no, of course not. And does it mean that mothers are better than fathers? Well, yes, of course. Let's get real here. And now, please, now don't run home and start sending me hundreds of emails about how I'm being sexist, or how women have just as much strength as men, or how same-sex couples can be just as loving as heterosexual couples. I mean, that's not what we're really talking about here. What we're talking about is understanding strength as a divine characteristic, an internal, inherent spiritual faculty and ability. And today we're honoring that divine strength that we have been known and blessed by its expression in our fathers. You know, before the arrival of Jesus, the concept of God that was handed down from the time of Moses and the prophets was that Yahweh was a jealous God, a God of wrath and fierce anger, who hates evildoers and takes vengeance upon those who did not obey his laws. But Jesus used the word Father and Heavenly Father to describe Spirit, to describe God within. He used the concept of Father deliberately to call forth the actual experience that each of the people that he was talking to had of their own earthly fathers, and the experience of that relationship of love and caring that has been made manifest in their lives as protection, as providence. Jesus spoke in the language of Aramaic, and many times he used the word Abba for Father, which actually calls out a relationship of personal intimacy, of love and strength and compassion. Again, similar to what his listeners had experienced from their own earthly fathers. He was, of course, not saying that God was a man, but to say that Spirit's true nature is indeed love, an enduring, loving, merciful character brought into expression through absolute strength. That's the true reality of Spirit. So here's a picture I wanted to share with you of my dad. Another example of strength. He fought in World War II, and he was flying as a navigator on submarine chasers across the English Channel. And when he first went over to England and started flying, he was told that he would fly, the routine they would fly 15 missions and then have about a week off and then go up and fly another 15. So we went over and started, and they flew 15 missions, and then 16, and then 17, and then 18 and 20, and then 25 missions straight, and then 30, and then 35 and 40, and 45 and 50 missions straight. And on the 54th mission, they crashed. And that was the only break they got before they got on another plane and they were up again. It was really war. It was really terrible. This is a picture of his plane that I found some time ago in his belongings, and I'm assuming it's a picture of his plane because it's the only picture of an airplane that I found, and it's marked as a B-14, which would be the type of plane that they use for subchasing and coastal reconnaissance during the war. But some of you aviation experts out there may point out that the configuration of that plane, it certainly looks like a B-24 Liberator, so I'm not really sure which one it is. And this next picture is a picture of my dad with his band of brothers. They lived and they died together. My dad is in the upper right there. They earned the title, the greatest generation. After the war, my dad worked long and hard hours, and he provided for us. And growing up, I felt safe. I felt protected. Well, except when I didn't really do what I was supposed to do and kind of messed up a little bit, because my dad was 6'4" and 240 pounds. So I thought I was going to die sometimes. But other than that, I felt safe and protected and loved. And here's a picture of my mom and dad. And so I was raised a middle child with 3 boys, and my dad actually left his family early and went out on his own. And he became an entrepreneur and self-made man. He owned and operated an Italian restaurant in Norfolk, Virginia for 27 years. Hence my love of anything Italian and Italian food. Pasta is my friend. And my favorite pizza, you ask? Well, it's got lots of black olives and mushrooms, and it's covered with feta cheese and double anchovies. Yeah. Pizza. As a matter of fact, Joyce said, how about, why don't we go get some pizza, for dinner this evening to celebrate Father's Day? I was going, oh, yeah, we'll do it. My dad was a patriarch, really, and he taught me responsibility for myself and responsibility to help and support others. He was domineering. There was no disagreeing with him. And yet, he helped birth in me a sense of strength by his role modeling personal strength. In my own life, I've followed that role modeling to discover my own inner strength, and then to go further and to realize the strength of the invincible spirit that lies within me. We're going to be blessed now by having one of our church members, Jessica Brown, the director of our youth and family ministries, speak for a few moments about her father and her experience of growing up with her dad.
Hello. Ever since I was a little girl, my dad was always the strongest man in the world. I know some of you think your dads are, but hear me out. He can start a lawnmower on the first try. That always impressed me so much. He picked up a recliner and moved it across the living room without help. And best of all, he could always lift my sisters and I up to his shoulders so we could dunk the basketball in the backyard. That was my favorite. All throughout my life, my dad has taught me about strength. So at first it was how to use your body to get that good, strong swing so you could really knock the ball out of the park for softball. Then it was basketball. You had to learn how to post up and be strong on the court. But as I got older, I learned that strength wasn't just about knocking people over and getting the ball into the outfield. Because when I was about 11 years old, my dad accepted the call into the ministry. And that showed me a lot of strength because my dad was not a public speaker. As a matter of fact, if he had to speak in front of a group of people, he would start stuttering almost every time. So he dug down and he heard that spirit call, and he didn't let his ego, his human mind, talk him out of it, and he went for it. And he went to seminary, and he became a pastor, and he got his first church. And you know what? He stopped stuttering. And so as I grew even more and saw him with overcoming that stutter and having the strength to follow his spirit, when I was around 13, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And this is when my dad showed me a whole new kind of strength. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to try really hard not to cry. I saw my dad have to dig down and find the strength to keep his faith. I saw him find the strength to maintain his composure and to guide his wife through this tremendously difficult time. And not just my mom, but me and my sisters, our family. He held it together. I saw his strength when the situation with his first church fell apart and we lost that support, and he had to experience the cruelty that some people can show. And I saw him rise up stronger at his second church, and I saw him lead a congregation that was just inspired by him. He's shown that same strength during my mother's final years. He held himself together. He was there for her for every moment, every surgery, every chemotherapy, every radiation. He showed strength when the radiology tech expressed her personal offense to him reading scripture to my mother during her treatments. And he stayed strong. He didn't even get mad. He just prayed for this woman, and he just kept going and kept supporting my mother. And then when she passed, I saw him cry. And that was the first time I'd really seen him cry. And I saw more strength in that moment of him being able to just express and to feel and to be. And then the strength again to rise back up and carry on and continue raising this family of 3 girls that suddenly he's the sole person in charge of. And most recently, certainly not least, I saw my dad access that strength again when, at the age of 52, he decided to go back to college. And he conquered his fear. He powered through a Spanish language class, even though he has mild dyslexia and was terrified. He failed it the first time, but he turned around and he picked himself back up and he rose back up stronger than ever and passed with flying colors. And now the strength that I see in him as he cares for his own aging father. And the strength is he teaches every day 6th graders. He teaches them a love of science and how to care for the world through social studies. My dad is still the strongest man in the world. I just define strength a little bit differently these days. And I am forever grateful for the strength that he passed on to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. We're going to talk now about a very familiar parable, the parable of the prodigal son. Yet this parable of the prodigal son could very just as easily be titled the parable of the forgiving father. Then Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me.' So he divided his property between them. And a few days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and squandered his property in dissolute living." And he realized, of course, that that was not a way to live, and he realized how wonderful was the bounty and the love that he had in his home from his father. So he set off and went back to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. And the son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his slaves, "Quickly bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him, and put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And let the fatted calf be killed, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." The strength to forgive, inner strength, rising as compassion, as love. Now we're going to be blessed by having another of our wonderful church family, L.K. Norman, recently retired from his service as one of our sacred chaplains, to speak about the experience of being a dad.
Good morning. My name is L.K. Norman, and I'm a late life dad. I feel like there should be a support group for us. Keep us from killing our kids. Keep in mind that everything I say today, I say with love. When they told me that Luke was going to be born, the first thing that I thought was, I hope they put the nursing home close to the high school, because I'm really going to need it. Second thing was, there are days when it's like I'm a grandparent age and he should be going home, but he doesn't. He stays at my house. And his mom, I mean, that's another story I'm not going to go into today, but I mean, through her, I was paid back for every woman I ever wronged in my life. And then if that's not enough, I mean, I get the gift that keeps on giving, Luke. And again, I do love him dearly. It's very different, though. I like to think, as being an older dad, what I may lack in energy some days, that I make up in wisdom. And again, that is pretty questionable. If you know Luke, or if you don't, you know that he is 10 years old, and he was born to me when I was 50 years old. So to keep you from doing the higher math today, I'm now 60. And he's got some autism going on, and they used to call it Asperger's. That's the way I still think of it, because that's really him. And one of the things that goes along with this is he's always on the defensive. His nature is very dark, and he believes that the best defense is a good offense. And he sets out to prove that daily with people. I mean, Luke puts the ass in Asperger's. So anyway, so this is the way I looked at it today. It was like he says a lot of words that aren't kind right now, but one of the ones that I've kind of given up on trying to get him not to say is crap. So I thought a good acronym for this short talk would be crap. So the C in this, and this is just the way I look at it as I parent him. The C is for Christ's nature, and it's not his Christ nature, it's mine. Each day it's a test to dig deeper, and I was very fortunate when I came across Unity, and it's a whole, again, another story, but thank goodness for Unity in my church community. And one of the first things that I did when I started coming in was taking classes, and Myra always encourages the classes, and if you haven't taken many classes, I encourage you to do it, because she's always saying go deeper. So I always strive to go deeper in things and to look into my Christ consciousness. And Luke, one day they pulled me out of service, and I think he was in Gil's class, and Dustin and Jessica came to get me, and Luke had locked himself in the bathroom stall. And when I asked him why, I said, why are you in here? He's grinning back there, and he goes, I'm bored. And you know, my dad, really, my dad, I really wanted that to kick in, because if it had been me in there and my dad was standing outside that door, he would have ripped that door off, and I would have come rolling back out into my sacred circle, probably holding that Christ candle, you know, and been happy if that's all it was. But Luke, you've got to handle him different. You've got to be firm, but at the same time, you can't do anything like that, because that's what he responds to, and almost it's his day-to-day thing, is drama and wanting to do something like that. So you don't do that. And daily, I ask myself, what can I learn from this? What is what can I do to help him? So the R is and this is realize what is mine to do. Lately, I've really been into interpreting dreams and connecting through conscious, subconscious, superconscious, and I enjoy that. And what I found out was, when I was doing this one day, Luke says, I remember my dreams. I said, you do? And he goes, yeah, I do. I said, well, tell me one. And he says, well, the last one, he says, last night I was in this building, and there was this slide, and there was this little boy in front of me, and I was jumping up and down the slide trying to get him to go down. And he said he believed it was you standing behind me doing it. And it didn't take much to interpret this as, Luke's ego, his big ego, jumping up and down, trying to just send that other part of him, that soul or his subconscious, back down in the basement of his mind, and just keep that ego in place and keep it in front of everything. But what it tells me is he's got a Christ consciousness. It's there. It's there if I can just help him find it. So in helping him find his each day, that's what I do, is help me find mine. So the A in this, the A is always keep your sense of humor. Luke, I've been called up to school 3 and 4 times a week. And one of the last times before school was out, they said, can you come up here? Because see, what had happened was I've taken his iPad away. And then he told me, he always reveals himself. He says, well, at school I look at whatever I want, so I'm not worried about home. So you know what I did? Exactly what you did. I sent an email to his school saying, hey, watch what he's doing on his iPad. So I started getting these emails from him going, what? You told them to watch me? What? And I told him, I said, you better watch him today because I think he's going to go off. And they said, no, he's fine. So the next thing I know, I get this this call saying, please come up to the school. They had chased him down, and he was in the, what he had done was he just said, I'm out of here. And he tried to escape from the school. It took 3 of them to chase him down and put him in the peace place is what they call it. It's really kind of a rubber room that they take out everything and put mats on the walls and the floors, and we're frequent visitors to that room. So I very simply told him, look, you got a choice. You can come with me today, or you can, you want to come with me to run my errands. I've got to go do a few things for business. Or you can stay here and go back to class. He says, I go back to class? Sure. So he did, and after school, though, he comes out. This is how he reveals himself. He goes, you know, today when I was running from him, I said, yeah. He goes, well, I juked him. I said, you what? He goes, well, I'd fake left and then I'd go right. He said, I think they were really impressed with my moves. And that's where the sense of humor comes in. You can't do that. You can't laugh in his face, but you want to. You want to do that. And this week, he's in summer school, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to go to school today and roast my teacher like a legit boss. I thought, where does he come up with this stuff? I don't know. But I'm telling you, like, who needs to watch a sitcom when I have one at home? That's what it is. And couldn't you see it? The announcer going, yeah, he should be on his reality show of his own, because the announcer would be going, Luke Norman's now getting dressed and getting ready to go roast his teacher like a legit boss. So that's the A, and then finally the P in this is just patience. You have to have a lot of patience with Luke. I mean, Friday his mom didn't show up to get him, and this is the biggest episode I've seen for quite a while. And he was going off and ripping up his room and heading for the family room, and I wasn't home yet. Bettina had to subdue him, and he carried the mood over into yesterday's event when he came, and until she picked him up. And you know, I can't get angry anymore. To me, it's about the love and compassion, you know, and feeling for him. And you have to be firm with him at the same time you work to bring this out. So this is where I look at like strength arising. That's what it is to me. It's sticking with it and every day doing this, because it's not just love and compassion for Luke, because Luke changed my life around. I know there are times he thinks, as we'll lay in bed in the more tender moments, he'll say things like, so you think I picked you out as my dad? I'd say, yeah, you did. I'm sure you did. Because I'm thinking there's got to be a reason for all this. And it makes me feel better. And he's smiling. I know in his mind he's thinking, man, I hope when I was your dad, I'd just beat the living stuffing out of you. You know, he's probably thinking these types of things. But it's about each day having the love and compassion for Luke, helping him to see things a little bit different in his life. And when people ask me, like, what do you do for a living? Anymore today, I say, I live each day. I get up and I'm joyous. And you may not be able to realize it because 60 years of stoicism, I mean, my excited face looks about like my bored face sometimes, but there's a party going on inside, let me tell you. And every day when I get up, I think, I do affirmations, I'll pray, I'll meditate, and it's all thanks to the things that we've done here. And know that because in about 30 minutes after I get up, the Antichrist of goodwill is going to get out of his bed and come in and greet me with his first complaint of the morning. So you just prepare for that. But I feel like because of this, I do live. If it weren't for Luke, my life wouldn't have turned around. I wouldn't have ever found higher thinking or unity. Probably wouldn't have met Bettina. I wouldn't be here today. It's just, so it's a good thing. It's a joyous thing. And I'm so happy about it. In Joshua chapter 1, verse 9, it says, have I not commanded you? Be strong, be courageous, do not be terrified. That word kind of blinks into my mind some days. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, because the Lord your God is with you, will be with you wherever you go. So I'm thankful for that. To those of you that are dads, moms that are dads, grandparents having to come back and ask us dads, happy Father's Day, and thank you.
Thank you, LK. So let us not forget this great reservoir of inner divine strength that lies within each and every one of us, ready to be called forth, ready to be put into use in our lives. When the flood tides of human adversity, selfishness, cruelty, hate, malice, jealousy beat about your mortal soul, you may rest in the assurance that there is one inner bastion, the citadel of spirit, that is absolutely unassailable. Let us close in prayer. We are so grateful this day, Heavenly Father, for the blessings of this life, for the blessings that the fathers in our lives have been to us, that the love that they have expressed is the love that flows through you freely to all of us. Each of us has been touched and blessed by fathers. We are grateful for this time, grateful for their blessings, their hard work, their patience, their love, compassion. We are truly, truly thankful. And in this thanks, we say simply, Amen.